7 years. Your immigration status, indefinite leave to remain. Hi everyone, welcome back to Lizzie Everyday Living. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And really, the best wishes for you and your family as 2025 approaches. So I thought I'd just come on here to share my experience of what the immigration process entails as it relates to a Jamaican teacher who has been living in the UK for some time now. All right. So I came here in December 2015. So I've been here for quite some time. And the immigration process is a very hectic procedure. All right. I came here as well. Some of you might be aware you need in terms of the type of visa is called a tier 2 visa, because my family, they would have come here on the tier 2 dependent visa because I was the person who received the job as an English teacher in the UK. So I came here, as I said, on the tier 2 visa, and I initially was sponsored a work permit, all right, for 2.5 years. All right. Now, most tier 2 visas, they have up until a maximum of 3 years before they expire. And I was, as I said earlier, my visa was 2.5 years. There are some teachers who get up to just 1 year sponsorship. There are some teachers who receive 2 years, 2.5. So, of course, once during the 2.5 years, the 2.5 years, the maintaining what is called resilience is very important, because if you are employed at a school, the school who recruits you from Jamaica, you have to be very resilient. Really, you want to prove to them that after the 2.5 years they have expired, that they want to keep you, right? They want to make sure that, or you want to make sure that they hire you or rehire you after the 2.5 years have expired. So it is not been the easiest at all. I mean, with I suppose any job at all, it comes with many challenges. So for me, that included making sure that I was marking books. So for example, it's not like in Jamaica where each time a child completes a written work, you mark the child's work within the lesson. In most cases in the UK, you actually never have that time to go through a child's book each time and mark it in each lesson, unless a child might say to you, okay, miss, can you check this for me to make sure that I have written up an example of a personification, for example, or I have written an analytical paragraph and I've followed the process of writing a successful paragraph. So a child might or might not say that to you, and you might not need to check the work, or you just might need to. So in most schools in the UK, you are required to mark your book at least 2 times for a half term. In most cases, a half term is 6 weeks to 7 weeks. Can be a little bit less, maybe 5 weeks, 5 point something weeks, but in most cases it's 6 to 7 weeks. So during those 6 to 7 weeks, you have to mark books at least 2 times for the half term. Now in my situation, when I started teaching in the UK, I started teaching from year 7 to year 11, what we in Jamaica call grade 7 to grade 11. And all of those books had to be marked 2 times for the half term. You have to plan your lessons. Of course, it's a scheme of work. In most cases, the school that I taught initially when I came here, they did provide most schemes of work. Some of them you have to make the lessons from scratch, but at least, you're given a guide or a syllabus that helps you to create the lessons. So you have to make sure that you create your PowerPoint. Sometimes when the even when the PowerPoints are created, the lessons, you have to go back and recreate it so that it suits you. All right. And so most lessons will last for like an hour, depending on the school. Sometimes it can be two hours. All right. And so you have to make sure that you're creating your lessons. You have to make sure that throughout your lesson you are checking assessment for learning, that you are making the work challenging, stretch and challenge. You have to make sure that you are, for SEND students who have special needs, that you're catering to their needs. So there are so many things that make up what a successful lesson looks like. And if they come and observe you and you are not fulfilling those basic criteria, it would simply mean that, the school might just decide that, hey, after the 2 years or the 1 year or whatever it is, they are going to let you go because you are not fulfilling that criteria. Now, bear in mind that as Jamaican teachers would have come here on the work sponsorship visa. So if the school decides that, guess what, we are no longer, we do not desire to keep you on any longer, it would mean that you either have to go back to Jamaica, or you decide that, guess what, I am going to try to reapply to another school before my work permit expires. Because I think the situation is, once a school decides to let you go, all right, in terms of employment, you have up until 60 days in the UK, all right, to find another job. That would simply mean that you'd have to apply for a new visa sponsorship and what is called an immigration health surcharge. All right, so the immigration health surcharge, of course, would just make sure that while you're here, you have access to health facilities, you can see the doctor and all of that. All right, so yeah, so of course, in my situation, the school decided that after the 2.5 years, they wanted to extend my employment. And so by extending my employment for another, I think it was 2.5 years, that would simply mean that after the 2 years, after the 2.5 years, I completed successfully again, and of course I got promoted, and it was a very enriching experience. And that's another thing, you have to make sure that you have, you very good relationship with the students, and so having completed the 2.5 years initially plus another 2.5 years, it would simply mean that I would have been in the UK for at least 5 years. So having lived in the UK, of course, for at least 5 years, it would simply mean that I can apply for what is called an ILR, or indefinite leave to remain. So indefinite leave to remain, of course, would simply mean that your time in the UK will not expire. And that is also another expensive process. But the good thing about that is, with the ILR, is that you are no longer bounded to that specific school that you're employed to. It means that you don't have to teach. You can step out into other fields of employment if you wish to. But in my situation, after the 5 year and I applied for indefinite leave to remain, I was successful. I decided to stay at the school that initially recruited me for another 2 years, because hey, I really liked it there. And as Jamaican teachers, when you start teaching, you stay at that school for many years, up until the point where you retire, right? For another 2 years. And so after 7 years, I decided that I wanted to move on. Plus, in terms of your immigration status, you would have applied for the indefinite leave to remain after the 5 years. And then once you have done 1 year with the indefinite leave to remain, then you can go ahead and apply for British citizenship. Right, and of course, having received the British citizenship, it would also mean that my son, uh, I could have applied for him as well, citizenship, and the same thing for my husband. So I would say, yeah, go for it. If you ever decide to come to the UK, it it takes a lot of hard work. It takes um, going out into the cold when you don't feel like going out. Sometimes you have to travel by train or bus. Well, you always have to travel in most cases by train or bus to work, because unless you're fortunate enough to have a car when you first come here, say for example you meet your husband here or you meet your wife here, you can always drive for 1 year with your Jamaican license, driver's license, if you have one, and then throughout that year you can apply for the UK driver's license, right? So it's a traveling, it's a long hours of work. As at my first school, I remember leaving out from where I lived at 5:50, reaching work before 7, because it wasn't where I lived, it wasn't very far from where I worked, but by the time I took the two buses, it took me over an hour between waiting for the bus and walking to the bus stop, walking to school, and so on. And not only that, it's in the UK, I don't know if, because at where I taught in Jamaica, I didn't have to do what was called like break duty or lunch duty. It depends on the school. I've been at schools where you have to do break duty once a week. Some schools is 2 times for the week, some schools is 3 times for the week, and it encompasses a lot of different things. And if for example you don't show up for these duties, of course the school takes everything into consideration. So yeah, it's you have to just decide that you know you know why you come to the UK, and you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. The UK, it's not a sociable place. So in most cases, when you do come home from work, you're so tired that the only thing you want to do is sleep. On the weekends, you do a few supermarket runs, um, you do chores, and it can become very monotonous. And I've known a lot of people who have decided to say, you know what, I'm going back home because either I can't cope with the struggles or the stress of working in the school system here, or they might decide that, you know what, it's not a happy place. It's not sociable, it's very monotonous. And so yeah, you have to just show that level of determination. Right now I've been on holiday for like a week, and I'm no, sorry, almost 1 week, because I got holiday on the 20th, and I'm still very exhausted. I think you can see it on my face, right? But God has blessed me, and to be honest, I can't be ungrateful. I'm now in a much better position. um and I'm coping. Each year, each summer, I look forward to when I can go back to Jamaica to visit my mom, dad, and my siblings. And even though I have British citizenship, I still decide that I want to teach. I suppose, as we Jamaicans would say, it is a calling. I've been teaching since I was 21, and I'm now 46. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I enjoy teaching. It can be rewarding, and there are some very lovely kids, You know, at the end of each lesson, sometimes they will say, Miss, thank you for the lesson, or you know, I remember a particular student saying to me just the other day, Miss, thank you for marking the books. I know we only did the assessment on Monday, but today is Thursday, and you have marked our books. Yeah, so, and then even after school, sometimes we have training that goes on for like an hour or two. It depends on what type of training you have to do. There are some schools that stipulate that you can't leave the premises until, say for example, school finishes at 3. There are some schools who stipulate that you cannot leave the premises until like 4:15. All right, so whatever you need to get done in terms of planning for the next day, or marking some books, or it might be that you have department meetings, or so it's not just like Jamaica where you know school's over, sorry, and most days, and then you just go home. Most schools here, you have to work for a few hours after school. There are some days when we have parents evening, which starts at, say, depending on the school, I start at 4:30, goes up until 7:30. And it's if you teach 5 different year groups, you have to attend those 5 parents evenings, sorry, which can span in most cases for like consecutive consecutive weeks. So like there might be one Thursday where you have a year 7 parents evening, by the following Thursday it's year 8, and it just goes on and on and on. So listen, there you go. That's my experience, and as you can see, I don't think I've even told you a half of what it actually entails to get to that process where you remain in the classroom, the school sees you as outstanding to excellent, decides to continue your employment, you know, up until the point where you get the citizenship. But if you're in my position, and say for example you know that Jamaica can be challenging financially, I would say go for it. You know, you can set up a better life for your child, and in my situation, of course, that was the case. And so that's my experience. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time around. All right, bye everyone. Please consider to like, share, and subscribe to my channel.